Okay, the first thing that we are going to do is we're going to turn to page 37 in our textbook, and we are going to work on project 1-5, creating a schedule for setting up a home office. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to navigate to the folder that I have saved my data files. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead out here and find my files. Chapter 1. Okay, so home office 1-5. I'm going to go ahead and open this up. Now, one of the things that I do is, especially when you're first learning this, what I recommend is to go ahead to the very end and find out what you are supposed to name it, so that you can go ahead and save it and name it. This way you will always have the original file to work with. Okay, so if you would need to go back and try it again, of course, you could always download it from the Falcon Online, but I always like to save it immediately, because then I always have my original file to work with. Okay, now that my file is open here, the first thing that it tells us to do, and this is very important, is converting all tasks to auto schedule. This is very important when you're using Microsoft Project, because most of the time you are going to use the auto schedule feature, and Project defaults to manually scheduled. And you can see down here that new tasks are manually scheduled. Okay, so in order to get these dates and stuff to work out correctly, we want to go ahead and do auto schedule tasks. Okay, so Microsoft Project has two scheduling modes. They're called manual and automatic. And in the manually scheduled mode, that is the default mode. And this allows you to do some flexibility when you're entering your information, but most of the time you're not going to use the manual mode unless you are kind of a Microsoft Project expert and have been working with schedules for a long time. The automatically scheduled mode reduces the flexibility of your durations and your dates, but it allows the schedule to be created, which requires less maintenance. So that's the first thing you want to do, and that's probably one of the things that is causing you some of the issues. For those of you that have already done this assignment, is because you didn't change it to automatically scheduled tasks. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and change this to automatically scheduled tasks. Okay, and you just click right down here, double click on it, which comes up with a dialog box, and you're going to change it all to auto scheduled tasks. Okay, now you'll notice that any new task created will be changed to auto schedule. Okay, so we need to go in here and go ahead and change all of these to auto schedule. And when you do that, you'll notice it starts scheduling the Gantt chart here for us. I'm going to have all of these as auto scheduled. All right. Okay. Okay, now the next thing we're going to do is we are going to go to step number 2, which is set tasks 6, 9, 10, and 14 as milestones. Now, in your book, it describes a milestone as a major event or a significant point in a project. Okay, now milestones are always set with a 0 duration. Okay, so they're actually not part of the type of items such as like ordering a computer takes 1 week, purchasing a phone takes 1 day. These are completion points, milestones, significant completion points. So those are indicated by 0 duration or 0 days. So in your book, back on page 22, it does say that if you want to insert a new milestone, you would of course come up here and click on the milestone up in the insert part of the ribbon. But since these have already been created, these tasks, what we're going to do is we're just going to change them to milestones. So all you have to do is click in the duration box and change them to 0. So you're going to change that to 0, press enter, and it will change it to a milestone. And this is the indication of the milestone is indicated by a little black diamond. Okay, so then I'm going to go to task number 9, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to change it to 0 and press enter. There you see another milestone. And then I'm going to go down to step number 10. All right, and as I'm doing this, it says, want to do this faster? Select the items you want to bulk edit and click either task information or resource information. So there's all different ways of doing this, but I'm just going to go ahead and do these manually for myself. I want to change that to 0 days because we're just learning how to do that, so we want to learn the easy way. All right, so we've got 6, 9, 10. So I did 6, 9, and 10. Oops, I did 11. So I don't want to do 11. Let's undo 11. Okay. And then we want to do number 14. So I click in here and do number 14 as a milestone. Okay, now we're going to move to step number 3, which is assign a start-to-start relationship for tasks 1, 2, and 3. Now, it's really important to make sure that you understand about tasks, okay? So, you really want to go back to page 26 in your lesson 1 and review about linking tasks, because this is really important, one of the most important parts about getting a schedule into Microsoft Project. Now, when you go into tasks and when you link tasks, that is connection between tasks that helps control the sequence and defines relationships between the two links. And I know that probably is a little bit confusing, but I'm going to try to go ahead and explain this. All right, now, when you link relationships, for example, it's going to take 2 weeks to order a desk and a chair, and 3 weeks to order additional phone line, and then 1 week to order the computer. Okay, now sometimes tasks can be done at the same time. They can start at the same time. But sometimes tasks have to finish before you can start the next task, okay? For example, to order the computer takes 1 week. Well, you can't set up the computer until you have received it. So that's what you're going to call finish to start, because you have to finish the order of the computer and receive the computer before you can set up the computer. Okay, so that's what we call finish to start. So that task has to finish before the setup computer and fax task can start. Okay, now the other relationships that you can have is what we call start to start. So that means that sometimes these tasks can be started at the same time. And that's what we're doing right now in step 3, is we're assigning a start to start relationship for tasks 1, 2, and 3. So we can go ahead and order the desk and the chair, order a phone line, and order the computer all at the same time. So they can start at the same time. Okay, so how to set that up for what we call the start to start relationship is we're going to go ahead and click to select task number 1, and you can hold your control button down on your keyboard, and you're going to select number 2 and keep holding the control key down and select number 3. All right, so we're going to go ahead and link these tasks. So we have to make sure that we are on the tab called task, and that's going to be another thing that's very important as you're working in Microsoft Project, is make sure that you're on the correct tab, so that you get the ribbon that goes along with what you're trying to do. And in this case, we are working on tasks, okay? And what we want to do is come over here in this little area, and you're going to see this one is if you're going to split a task, which you'll get into that later on. This one here is where you're going to link the tasks. And then sometimes you may have tasks already linked, and this button here is to unlink them. Okay, now watch what happens in the Gantt chart here when I click on the link button, okay? The default is to set it up as a finish to start. And a finish to start means that this one item, you see how this just changed? It means the order desk and chair is going to take 2 weeks, and it defaults to the finish to start. So in other words, task number 2 would not start here until task number 1 was done. And the same with number 3. See how it changed over here to number 3? Okay, so we need to fix that because the default is finish to start, and we're going to double click on the little arrow here, which will bring your task dependency box up. Notice it defaults to finish to start. We're going to click the little drop down and change that start to start. Now watch that change, the Gantt chart up here change when I click on this. And I say okay. All right, there we go. So now your arrow is saying, okay, you know what? Task number 1 can start at the same time as task number 2 because they don't depend on each other, okay? They can go ahead and all start at the same time. So we still need to fix number 3 down here and get that one to change. We double clicked on the little arrow here. That's the dependency arrow. And I'm going to click here and change that one to SS, which is start to start. Say OK, and you'll notice now that one jumped. So now all 3 of those can go ahead and start at the same time. And whenever you have dependencies, these here are all starting at the same time, okay? So when you get down here into the purchase phone area, this is going to be called a successor. So in other words, you're going to be ordering the phone line first, which is the predecessor. And then when you purchase the phone, because you got to have the phone line in before you could connect the phone, is going to be the successor because it comes after the predecessor, okay? And all of this is on page 26 and 27 in your book. And it's very important that you understand the finish to start, start to finish. And then the lesser used on page 27 of your book is finish to finish and start to finish. Those are the lesser used. Most of the time you're going to be using finish to start or start to start. All right, so we did step number 3, which was our start to start with task 1, task 2, and task 3. So now it wants us to assign a finish to start relationship for tasks 1 and 6, 3 and 9, and 2 and 10. Now make sure you're reading this correctly, because it's not saying finish to start between 1, 6, 3, 9, 2, and 10. There's 3 different requests it's asking you to do there, okay? So the first one we're going to do is we're going to do a finish to start from 1 and 3. All right, so let's click outside and unselect these 3 that I had. And now I'm going to go in here and I'm going to select number 1. I just put my mouse pointer over to the left of the number 1, and you get the little right facing arrow. And then I'm going to come down and get the right facing arrow in front of number 6, okay? Press my control on the keyboard, click that, you'll notice both of those are selected. Okay, so I'm just linking those. That's what it means. Assign a finish start to relationship. I'm linking. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to click once again, make sure I'm on my task tab, and I'm going to click here on the link, okay? Now remember, the default is finish to start. So when I click on this link, watch what happens with those 2 tasks. Watch over here in the Gantt chart, okay? Okay, so you see what happens is number 6 cannot start until number 1 is complete. So we have to order the desk and chair first, of course, before the desk and chair can be delivered. And it will be delivered on 9/25. Here's our link relationship right here. That's our finish. It will finish and then start, okay? All right, now we have to do the same thing for number 3 and 9. Okay, so I'm going to click out just to unselect these, and I'm going to get the right facing arrow and select number 3, and then I'm going to come down to number 9 and click on that. All right, now I have those 2 selected, and what that means is we're also doing a finish to start, because of course we have to order the computer, and then when it arrives is going to be when we start with the computer delivered task, okay? So we're going to go up on our ribbon in the schedule area, and we're going to click on that link, okay? Now you'll notice that it jumped down here to 9:18. Here is our start, and then we have the finish, okay? So when the order computer finishes, which is in 1 week, then the computer delivered finishes here. So that's how it has to finish before this can start, okay? All right, now we're going to go into number 2. So I'm going to unselect these, and I'm going to click on number 2. And also number 10. I'm going to come down, hold my control button down on the keyboard, and click on number 10. Whoops, that's wrong. I got all of them. I don't want all of them. So let's try that again. So I'm going to click on number 2, come down, get that little right facing arrow, hold the control button down, and select. Okay. All right, so of course we have to order the additional phone line and then get the phone line installed. Okay, so we have to finish one before we can start the other. Okay, all right, so I'm going to click on the link. Watch the Gantt chart over here to your right change. There we go. So that task has to finish before this task can start, and this is showing the link. It's showing that these 2, number 2 and number 10, are linked, because here's your line that shows your link. And of course, if you do rest your mouse pointer over, if I can get this to stay up, when you rest your mouse pointer right over that line, it will tell you what your relationship is there. I can't get it to stay, but it will. There we go. You have to be like right on it, and you could double click and get it to stay up and see what your task dependency is, and we can see that this is a finish to start dependency from ordering the phone line to the phone line being installed. Okay, I'm just going to click cancel. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and we're going to assign finish to start relationships for tasks 4, 5, 7, and 8. So we're going to actually link all 4 of those together, okay? So first of all, let's go up here and get our right facing arrow and get number 4 selected by clicking your mouse. And then I'm going to go down and select number 5. So I'm going to hold my control button down on the keyboard, select number 5, keep holding the control down, go down and grab number 7, and then grab number 8. So what you're doing here is you're making a finish to start. So each one of these tasks has to finish before the next task can start, okay? So you're just defining the linking relationship here. So I'm going to come up here and just click on the link button, all right, and see what happened to the Gantt chart. All it did was tell you, okay, look, when you purchase the phone, that has to finish before you can purchase the fax machine. And it tells you it's going to take 1 day. And then when you purchase the fax machine, that takes a day. Then once the fax machine is purchased, you come down here, it has to finish before you can purchase the file cabinet. And then you have to purchase office supplies. So that has to finish before you can purchase the office supplies. And you'll notice the durations are all in 1 day. So it takes 1 day each to do those items. And then you have September 14th, September 15th, 16th, and 17th. There's your 4 days, okay? All right. Now, the next step, number 6, is we're assigning a finish start relationship for tasks 10 through 14. So let me click out of here, get everything unselected. And I want to go ahead and do 10 through 14. So those are all going to be linked together. So I'm going to get that right facing arrow and select number 10. Hold my control button. Get the right facing arrow, hold control down, grab 11, 12, 13, and 14. Okay. And then once I have all of those, we're going to do, once again, finish to start, because all of these things have to be done one at a time, and you have to finish one before you can start the other. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and click here on the link, and notice the Gantt chart view over here has changed and made all of these to where you're going to complete one item before the next item finishes. And then you should end up with an ending date of October 6th. And if you get the ending date of October 6th, then that means you have done the schedule correctly. Okay, so my advice would be to go ahead and open the data file again and walk through it step by step again, following my video, and you should be able to come out okay. I know that it was probably a little bit confusing due to the fact it's the first time you're using Project, and it throws you right into learning about these relationships. But I think if you review in the book about the relationships, once again, in your textbook about linking tasks and understanding the relationships, and after watching my video, I think you should have a little bit better handle on it. I'm going to try and see if I can find a couple of videos out on the web also to help understand about the relationships. But in Microsoft Project, everything is about these tasks, the dependency on one task to another. If they're, something has to finish, this has to finish before this one can start. This one has to finish before this one can start. This one has to finish before this one can start. Okay? So that's how your schedule works. And always remember to make your tasks auto-scheduled. You're probably going to be using always auto-scheduled unless indicated in the book manually scheduled. And most of the time manually scheduled are for more advanced users when they go in there and do a schedule where they're going to take care of it more manually. But you always really want to use auto-scheduled. And then you can turn any, when you do go into these files that are a lot of stuff is already created for you, the first thing remember to do is go down here and tell it that any new tasks that you're going to create, because a lot of exercises going forward, you are going to be creating new tasks. So you want to make sure the first thing you do when you come in here is schedule any new tasks. Make sure that they are scheduled as auto, okay? And keep that in mind. And then always make sure you are working on the tab related to what you're doing. So we are working with tasks, okay? And notice that these are all been changed to automatically schedule tasks. If they're manually scheduled tasks, they will have like the little push pin icon so that you know something's not right there. If your schedule is not coming out to the right date here, always go back and look and see if you happen to have a little push pin. Because the little push pin, look at how it messed it up and changed it to 10/7 because it was manually scheduled, okay? But when we go back and fix that to an auto scheduled, it picks up right where it needs to be between the start and the finish dates of the project. Because this home office is a project. It might be a small project, but it is a project that we are working on, okay? I'm going to file, save as, and I'm going to go ahead and name it Home Office. And if you would, for me, please put your last name there for me because I open a lot of files up sometimes at the same time. You can leave the activity number there for me or the lesson number because that will also help me. So you can just leave that as Home Office 1-5 and then just go ahead and save that. But make sure that you do know where you're saving these files at because you're going to want to be able to access them later. So I always use my my OneDrive. Okay, and I'm just going to go down to my folder for the class and I'm just going to make a new folder and put Halloran Files so that I know where I can find this later. And then I'll name this Halloran Home Office and I can leave the 1-5 and save. All right, thank you.